Hey guys, what's up? It's Stark here. I just want to go over the live stream. If you missed it or if you watched it because it kind of went horribly wrong, but I found out what the problem was. Mostly it kept crashing Houdini, so that was the reason why. So for those of you that haven't seen it, which is probably most of you, I'll just walk through exactly what I did. So if you watched the last video, where we were at is that we needed to isolate the roof and this, okay, which we did. So it all just fell at that point. It had constraints on it, but it was still just falling. Now the thing that we want to do, however, is, and this is a good thing to just do, like how we took this section out here. Well, we're going to do it again. Okay. So what I did is I just did it by selection. So I just dropped down a group create, and then I'm just using this sphere to do it. And the reason I'm doing that is because, let me change the view. Instead of having every single piece fall, like completely fall, let's see, actually, if I'm gonna go up to the split right here. There's that, and then the output. So anyways, the rest of the tower. So we don't want this perfect cookie cutter like cutout. And like I said in the stream, if you have, because we have this ball like shooting at it, we don't want it to just leave a perfect hole, right? And that's exactly what would happen is if we didn't have the constraints on active and inactive. So what I did is I made a group to create. So essentially, okay, everything in here has the possibility to fall, okay, and separate. The whole outline, like the border, and including up here will fall too, but these borders will stay. And the reason why is, I'll show you delete. It'll break up the scene to give it more of a realistic look. So you have pieces that will stick, because they're not all going to fall, but they'll stick, and then you kind of get this jagged edge. And that way it's not a perfect thing. Like it's more apparent up here. All right. Okay. So all I did was at that point, I just packed the primitives again and I brought the group over. So now it's just the exact same thing. Okay. So it's creating the active group. It's creating the active group on the selection of active selection. So essentially everything that was passed into this group is now going to be active. And then we just continue doing what we did last week, which is unpacking it. However, if you look here, there's an assemble, okay? And then we packed it again. So we basically have a double assemble. So look at it as, right here, we have a folder with stuff in it. And then we just made, inside of that folder, we made another folder with stuff in it. So we basically have to unpack the first one, which is totally fine because it gives us the ability over here to make the constraints. All right. But then what we have to do is we have to unpack the stone group. So you can see here, group stone. And then what I'm doing is I'm just deleting everything that's not in the group. All right. And then again, we're going to assemble it because we need to make constraints between the points. And all I did is I created a new name attribute and I called it chunk1. And then it's always good to have your name of the primitive match the name of let's go up here, the point. Okay, and because it's packed, this is essentially just a point. So just scroll down here. Oh, well, it's unpacked, sorry. Essentially all the points of a piece of geometry is matching its primitive name. All right. So let me turn this off, and then we have this group here called brick. All right. And it's probably not the best idea that I did that. However, I'm not going to change it. Now, if you're watching the stream, this is where Houdini kept crashing, and that's why I'm recording this video. So what's happening is we have the group named Stone, okay? And we have it here, and so group Stone, and then our clusters are being created, all right? And I'm not doing random detach because I don't want pieces to fall off. That's another thing for another time, but now we'll go down here and let me try something. Let me run it over only the stone stuff, okay? So I'm just gonna run the simulation. And I want to point out I'm on convex hull, which are not as accurate, but if you watched last week's, you probably, or not last week, the week before, 2 weeks ago, the last video. If you watch that, then you'll have realized that at the very end where I was like, oh no, it's crashing, it's just because I had everything as concave, meaning each piece was colliding as its actual piece shape. So it's just more accurate, meaning it's going to take longer to simulate. So for this, I'm keeping it as convex hull because I'll just use show. There, see? So it's basically just making I don't want to say a bounding box, but a rough shape around it. So I'll just turn this off. So you can see each of these pieces are not accurate. However, if I change it to concave, you're going to get the pieces. So for this, convex hull. And I actually, when I post this file, I will do it as a convex hull, but I recommend that you actually simulate it as concave, and it will take a while, but just so you know, because next week's stream will sort of be based on it. But let me see if this works, if the thing I did. Okay. So let me go back. So the thing I changed it to, let's just undo just to make sure. Okay. So I think what was happening is that, so I had the constraint group as stone, and this looks funky. I don't know why it's doing that. I thought it was a problem, but I think this is actually what's making it work. So if it works, great. Now we press play. And I think what was happening is that I was essentially just telling it only to make constraints to itself. And I thought that was actually an issue, but it turned out to be the issue that I did. So that's actually my fault. So now you could see everything is not falling. So like these things here are left alone. So we just go here, and then I'm gonna well, here, I'll turn this on so you can see all the constraints and everything. So if you look at the white area, you can see these are basically the clustered constraints. And if I'm gonna turn it off now, but I'm just gonna let it play out. And one of the sort of neat things you can see is, let me just pause it here. I mean, it's hard to discern it, but it is keeping the clusters intact. But let me actually take a step back, because there's this cool thing that I'll go over now, then turn it back on. Essentially, what you could do is they added this thing to the constraint type, to the glue, and you could switch any type of constraint you want. You could do it in a wrangle. But just for this, it's neat that it's in here that if you're using a glue constraint, you can say that once it breaks, to change it to a soft constraint. So I'm going to turn this off, and then let's resim and see the difference. These should just be like more big blocks of stuff after they get hit. So you can see that they're all kind of dumping down, where the previous version, I guess if you go back a little bit, they're not. The constraint type is switching. And that's probably not the best representation. So what we can do is we'll make the clusters just a bit bigger. There we go, something like 0.7. Now let's go back in and see. Yeah, you can see all the big chunks. Actually, kind of like that. I'm going to keep that, actually. I might split the difference, however, because it is kind of taking all of these guys with it, and I don't want that. This is cool. So yeah, we'll go back. So I had it at 0.3 and then at 0.7, so we'll try. Then let's see how this looks. Okay, I'm going to keep that. Now, let's turn back on the glue, or the constraint switching, to RBD cluster, not random detach. What am I doing? Switch constraint type. Let's see how this looks. So it's almost like it has a bit more drag to it. So you're not getting that whole like dumping thing going on. Now what I'll do is I'm going to make another one called switch 1. And I want to do it to our constraint over here. So soft, and we'll call it switch 1. Okay. So switch 1. And maybe let's try something like constraint iterations 3. and then 15, and let's see what happens. Now, here's where I was talking about the errors, okay? So this guy's sticking out. That's because of the glue constraint, most likely. So you have to be weary of stuff like that. But let's just change this to 100, and then I might delete it, and then we'll actually be done. But next week's stream, I want to go over adding detail to everything using some of the new nodes, but also just how to save like hard drive space by using a new node that extracts the transform. So instead of us having to export every single frame, we could export it, but then just like export its position and rotation, all of that. Yeah, see, this is not looking too good. So I'm gonna actually not do the constraint on this guy. And we'll go, let me go back. We'll go back to our original and not switch it. But you should actually give this a try on just anything. Just fracture something and drop it and then have it do that because it looks awesome. So let's press play. So yes, the transform, and then using the new measure stop. I mean, the measure stop's not new, but they updated it and it's a whole lot better because you could do a lot more with it, especially to get edge detail. So there's a way that you used to have to do it sort of, not even sort of, but in Vex or using VDBs to get the middle area, but now you could just use that to do it. So it's pretty cool. All right, so this is where I'm going to end it. I know this is short, excuse me. I know this is shorter. I have the hiccups there, but I will post this file. I'm going to post it with convex hull, but again, I am telling you to do it as concave and save it out, especially for next week if you kind of want to follow. I mean, you don't have to, but you're gonna have a more accurate sim. So this is quick, but the other thing you have to understand too is that just by switching it, it's not exactly the same because they're not colliding the same. So it's not like going from a low res to a high res. It's basically different shapes. So it's gonna be different. So just keep that in mind. So, all right, guys, that's about it. Thank you for watching this and look forward to next week's stream.